Alright, my dog just walked in. So today we got to talk a bit about steamos because the comments do not stop, and I thought I would try to explain my thoughts a bit better. So you might be looking at Windows 11 and you're like, okay, I want off Mr. Bones Wild Ride. What kind of operating system should I install? And you might think, oh, well, Linux is the only reasonable option at this point. Maybe I should install that. So you have a lot of PC gamers who have never used Linux, or if they have, it's in such a minimal way that I don't know, it doesn't really count. And what they're doing is they're saying, I'm gonna wait for SteamOS to become a full desktop replacement operating system. And I want to say that's kind of a misunderstanding of what SteamOS is. SteamOS is similar to macOS. Now you might wonder why the fuck I just said that, but macOS is a product operating system, and so macOS ships on Apple computers, and that's it. So it's not really meant to be run outside of an Apple, outside of Apple hardware. SteamOS is not really meant to run outside of Steam hardware. All of their development goes into just making it work on the Steam Deck and the Steam Machine once that comes out. So you have people who are waiting for an operating system which one isn't coming, and two, even if it did come, I want to talk about why that's not really feasible. So you can run a purely immutable distribution on your computer. We got to go into the difference between immutable and atomic. With SteamOS, you are not able to layer packages over the system image. This means that when you install your VPN client or you install your printer driver or whatever else you need to install, as soon as SteamOS updates, you're going to lose that package. So instead, you use containers for everything, and not everything can be run inside a container. Some things you're going to need DistroBox for, some things you're going to need Brew for, some things you'll need Flatpak for. You can go that way, but when it comes to a system level package like a driver or a VPN client, it's hard to do. So if as long as you can get by without those things, maybe you're fine. But SteamOS also doesn't even have printer support. Now this should be your key takeaway is SteamOS was not designed to be run on a office computer. So there are much better options for this. Not only do you have Bazzite, which can do all of the things that SteamOS can do, while retaining all of Valve's, patches and whatever. It's just a bit less, because it is a desktop operating system and it's meant to be run on desktops or handhelds without Valve support, without needing a product certification. What you'll have is, you'll have a slightly buggier experience. And the thing is, people think that, the likes of Red Hat or Canonical are just stupid and they're not like Valve, and so they're not able to make a noob-friendly Linux distro, but Valve obviously can. And what that means is people haven't really looked into why SteamOS is more stable, and it's because yeah, it's based on Arch Linux, but they're actually rolling, or sorry, not rolling. They are not rolling. They are running a stable version with what was it? I mean, it's immutable, so every time it updates, you get a new system image, of course. But that improves the stability as well. Being able, or not being able to modify system files or install native packages is another one. Uh, and because it is designed to be run on very specific hardware, you don't run into hardware specific bugs, which is something that both Windows and Linux are ought to do. My dog needs to stop begging me for food. Stop begging me for food, dog. Anyways, so you have this product operating system not designed to be run on your desktop computer and doesn't even include simple features, like basic features that you would want out of a desktop operating system. And for some reason, so I always say, right, and I probably said this in the last video, but a PC gamer does not necessarily make you an expert at computers. Even building a PC does not make you an expert at computers. I'm not even an expert at computers, but I have a bit more knowledge than a Windows user does about Linux, you know? So it gets really irritating when people, they spend all this time, they dedicate themselves to Windows, and then they don't really understand what they're getting into and they try to switch off of it. It's like all of their knowledge melts away, and you're left with basically somebody who's tech illiterate, trying to justify their Stop, dog. Jeez. Trying to justify waiting for an operating system from a company who doesn't really want to be on the line for supporting an entire hardware ecosystem that they don't control. So I don't see the point in waiting for SteamOS. It's not even a good option for a desktop operating system. It's actually a really horrible. It's actually really horrible at that. But people will wait anyways, and they're like, "Oh, as long as Valve makes it, if Valve makes it, I love it." And this is not, it's not realistic. One, it's a misunderstanding of what they're doing too. And yeah, like obviously I'm gonna give you the recommendations, which is Linux Mint or CachyOS or Bazzite or whatever you want. Whatever you want to use, just pick a distro. Like you are going to have to actually pick a distro because you're going to install SteamOS, realize it's not actually all that good. You're going to realize that Valve was basically using a lot of smoke and mirrors in order to give the perception that their OS was stable and secure and useful and all that. But really, it's like buying a MacBook. You know, it comes pre-installed with SteamOS and it does SteamOS things, and that's all it does. And as long as you're using a Steam Deck, you'll have a good experience. But as soon as you bring it to other hardware, that's where projects like Bazzite come in, where they take SteamOS's changes, they take what they've done, and they port it to a suitable desktop operating system. So that's kind of where we're at. Just yeah. I'll see you guys later. Bye.